Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Fredrick. With me today as a special guest, we have Tim Murphy, who is the CEO of Branch Basics. Tim, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, fun. Well, let's dive right in here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and, of course, the company itself and kind of what you guys do?
Yeah, so I have a background in consumer products. After business school, I started working at General Mills, and it was a great 4 years, good training. But at the end of the day, I think I was a frustrated entrepreneur in a big Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, it is. And so after a few years, I left and started working on a small frozen food startup. And it was a long, hard slog. We did frozen veggie burgers. And it was working fine, but I was giving great years of my career to something that was only working fine. And I decided to move on. And at that time, my wife is from Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And I got connected to the founders of Branch Basics. And I had met them long ago at Natural Products Expo West, actually, a big food trade show.
Okay.
And I always remember meeting them and being impressed with them and their brand. And they were looking for help relaunching their business. And so I was looking for my next thing, having moved on from this frozen food startup. And so a buddy of mine who was also looking for his next thing was we were kind of looking at deals together, looking at our next opportunity. And we ended up helping the founders of Branch Basics relaunch their business. In the beginning, we just kind of gave them some time to help them get a supply chain going and start things back up. But long story short, they had started Branch Basics back in 2012. And it really started with one of our founders, Marilee Nelson. Her son was chemically injured when he was in grade school. This is many, many years ago.
Okay.
And he was exposed to some really harsh pesticides at school. And he went from kind of a normal functioning young boy to somebody who was super sick and reacting to kind of everything and anything in their home or in schools, like the finish on the table, the paint on the walls, like anything. And Marilee was seeing expert after expert trying to understand what was going on. And the experts basically came to her and said, Marilee, we don't understand how he's reacting to such little things. We cleaning products, makeup products, candles, I mean, almost anything he would react to. And they basically said, we're throwing up our hands. Like,
we're out of ideas.
Yeah, we're out of ideas. And we think he's got to live in kind of a bubble. Like, you got to create a bubble that is super clean and he's going to live there for the rest of his life. And long story short, she kind of refused to believe it. And over many years, nursed him back to health with a clean environment, toxin-free environment, and clean food. And the story has kind of a remarkable ending. He went from reacting to everything super sick to the first homeschooled kid that ever graduated from the Naval Academy. So
Wow.
pretty awesome.
Amazing.
And in the midst of that process, Marilee really learned the power of these chemicals that are in our everyday products. And cleaning products are some of the biggest offenders. There's some of the harshest chemicals that we all keep in our every day in our homes. And so anyway, fast forward a few years, her niece is sick with some mysterious symptoms, can't get to the bottom of pain and different things like that. And she's seeing experts and they're throwing up their hands and saying, we're out of ideas and out of answers. And so she has this idea. She's at the end of her rope and she says, I wonder if I go out and live with my aunt out in the hill country of Texas. My hippy dippy aunt lives kind of a natural organic lifestyle.
Yeah.
Wonder if we can help. I doubt that she will be able to, but we'll give it a shot. So she brings her college roommate, Kelly. So Kelly and Allison are two of our founders, and they go and live with Marilee, Allison's aunt. And they have this amazing transformative summer where they enter this kind of clean environment with clean food, and they live this natural and organic lifestyle that Marilee has lived. And all of a sudden, Allison's symptoms start subsiding, the pain starts subsiding, Kelly, who went in relatively healthy, stuff like dry, itchy skin or menstrual cramps or headaches that she just thought were kind of normal, those all started to subside. And at the end of the summer, they're about to graduate from college. They're like, we got to put this woman's brain on the internet. Like this is amazing. This woman has, a way of living that everyone could benefit from. And so they kind of brainstormed ways to do that. And this company was born, Branch Basics was born out of that summer. And they used the company to really educate people on health and wellness. So when they got going, they were buying soap in big totes, putting it in small bottles and selling it online. And it worked really well, kind of better than they expected. But they didn't own the formula. They were buying this soap from a woman in Florida, actually. So they tried to buy it and it didn't really work out. And so they knew that there was something special here. And so they shut down the company for about 1.5 years. And in that time, they reformulated with a new manufacturer.
Okay.
And at the end of that 1.5 years, they had a new product and they were ready to relaunch, but they needed some help. And so that's where I came in with my buddy, Greg. And we started just giving them some help in the early days, fell in love with the founders, the brand, the idea, the company, and ended up partnering with them. So Greg and I run the business here in Minneapolis day to day, and the founders are still very much involved at kind of a founder level, social media, PR, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I got involved with the company.
Wow, quite the interesting story there of how
it's a long story that's probably too long, but I get the details.
Yeah, very interesting. So quite a decision there for them to make, to shut the company down for 1.5 years when you've probably got recurring customers there who've been buying from you, and now you're going to turn your back on them even for a little while. That's a tough proposition because they're probably going to go elsewhere.
Absolutely. And two things. One, the founders handled it really well. I mean, that was my concern, right? When I start looking at this business and potentially getting involved, a business that's been shut down for 1.5 years, you're basically starting from zero, right? I mean, certainly zero sales, but it could be worse than that in the sense that, like you said, there's ill will, right? Where customers feel left out in the cold and that kind of thing. One, they did a great job of communicating to their customers why they did this. I mean, they did it for good reasons in the sense that it was all about transparency and telling customers what's in the product. I mean, that's kind of one of their highest values. And so that was a good reason. And then they communicated it well. And you would be amazed, but these customers came running back. And I think one of the big reasons that they did was because this product was really built for the chemically sensitive community. This was one of the only products that Marilee's son didn't react to. So she was able to use that with him in the house to clean her house, to wash their hands. And so it was a natural kind of, product to start with. And people came back because it worked so well.
Yeah. So has the product and the way it's offered been subscription all along, or did they used to be retail and you pivoted to subscription?
So they've always been direct to consumer, selling only on their own website.
Okay.
But not subscription. So when Greg and I got involved about 3.5 years ago, we started from zero sales, but we did have kind of an email distribution list from the old company. And we started with a pre-sale. We kind of quickly sold out of that. We didn't realize that they had kind of a cult following and these real rabid fans. And so that was one of the things that sort of the light bulbs that went off for us was like, hey, we have this interesting razor blade model because we only sell online. We have this concentrated soap, and then we sell you empty bottles like a bathroom cleaner, an all-purpose cleaner, a glass cleaner. Those are all empty bottles when you get them. Okay. And you take this concentrate and you mix it with water. And we've got lines on the bottle to say, hey, fill the water to here and then fill the soap to here. Yeah. And so that it was a natural subscription play because of the razor blade model. Yeah. And so we just threw it against the wall. And we were like, I wonder if anybody's going to buy cleaning products on subscription. And the other thing is it's a high price point. So our kit that 99% of new customers buy is a $69 kit. Okay. And then to reload on the concentrated soap, it's a $49 purchase. And so fairly high price point for a subscription. It's not like a Harry Racer or something like that. And so we were like, gosh, I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll give it a shot. And sure enough, just, people jumped. We gave a price break, 10% to subscribe and save.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly but surely, just every month, we just kept getting more and more subscribers. We'd lose some, obviously, but net we were gaining every month. And it's now become a very significant piece of our business, and obviously a super valuable one.
So as you sit today, is it hybrid? You can just buy one off or do subscription? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we think that's important. We've all seen the businesses that kind of force subscription, and there's probably a role for those, and it probably works well in some categories. We really feel like the best experience for consumers is to be able to choose. We're hoping that they love the product so much and that they find themselves reordering so much that it kind of gets annoying, and then they move to the subscription. That's kind of in a perfect world.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working well.
Well, speaking purely as a consumer, forget the, being in the industry, but I've gone to websites and just wanted a one-off transaction and been forced into only a subscription model. And I'm like, I'm going to cancel this thing. I really just want to do one thing today, but you're making me go down this path. And so, the hybrid model, certainly in this type of situation, seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, like you said, your mind's made up, right? Like I'm not going to trick you into a subscription. Like it's just not going to happen. And so let's just make an amazing customer experience. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So how have you guys been, natural cleaning products? There's certainly others that are out there. And then if you think the likes of Amazon Subscribe and Save and things like that out there, there's absolutely competition. So what are you guys doing to really differentiate this product in an otherwise somewhat crowded space?
Yeah. So first of all, just to speak to the product itself, it's built for the chemically sensitive community. So it's really, really safe. And we put the ingredients, we're not required to, but we put the ingredients on every bottle. And we're really proud of them in that way. Even more important than that, it really works. So I think a lot of times people trade safety for efficacy. Yeah. And in this case, they can get both. And we get emails every day or testimonials, direct messages on Instagram every day that basically said, my husband thought I was crazy. He never thought this would work, but he's been blown away and he's using it all over his stuff, his grill or his car or whatever else. So it's pretty funny. We get that all the time. So in terms of differentiation, not only is it super safe, it really works, but that's kind of table stakes, right? For cleaning products. Like it's, in this day and age, it's got to be clean and it's got to work. Where we're really trying to separate ourselves from the pack and certainly other cleaning products is we're really trying to build a lifestyle brand around health and wellness. So our founders, kind of like I mentioned, they never set out to start a cleaning business, right? They wanted to put Marilee's brain on the internet for everybody to benefit from, all of the stuff that she knows about healthy living and clean food and toxin-free products and all this kind of stuff. And so we really consider ourselves an education company first and a product company second. And when I say that, I really mean it. I mean, we spend a lot of time and energy and resources on our content, social media content, blog content, email content, video content. I told you earlier, we're working on a podcast. So all of those things, we really think of that as the heart and soul of the company. And the products are sort of the economic engine that allows us to do all that education. So that's kind of the head fake a little bit. The more we educate, the more products we sell. The more we try and push product, the less we sell. So it's that's kind of the secret sauce, I feel like. Yeah. And if I could tell your listeners anything, anybody who's trying to start a new business or scale a business, if they can find their version of that head fake, right, where they can be out changing the world for good and use their business as an economic engine to do that good work, it's a powerful combination.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it looks different in every industry and for every founder and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't have to look just like ours, but I will say when you can reach out and engage with consumers in ways that are meaningful and relevant to them, and not just pushing product. Like no one wants to be pushed product on, right? Subscription otherwise.
Right.
And that's been a really cool thing for us. So
yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I've had 3 conversations this week with the recurring theme of where subscriptions have a whole lot of power is they effectively become curated content around a specific topic. And when they start doing that, they start to build a community. And having that community of people who love the brand, or, just love the topic or industry, or whatever, that's a bond that Amazon will never have, right? They're trying to be all things to all people, but the subscription brands who can really build that, we have a higher purpose here. We're going to educate you. We're going to link you up with other members who can, you can have meaningful discussions with. And then, to your point, the product is kind of the economic engine behind that that fuels it all. But that's really what you're building, is that whole sense of community. It's powerful.
100%. And that's the thing that I think has been so surprising for us, is the word community that you're using. Like, it's amazing. We have it on social media because our founders are on Instagram a lot. That's where they naturally kind of gravitate towards. It's a really powerful way for us to educate lots of people at once in a kind of a really dynamic way. The community that has evolved around our brand and our products and our founders and this health and wellness messaging, like, it's amazing. It really is. So that's been kind of one of the special parts of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And community, it means something now a little bit different, but it means more than ever, right? We used to have a lot of different ways and physical ways to be a part of a community, but now everybody's going online trying to do that, right? Trying to do it in the safest ways possible. So looking for brands like yourselves that, they can engage with and be a part of. I mean, that's got more meaning than it ever has, right?
Yeah. I think just like e-commerce kind of took a massive leap forward during COVID, that will stick around, right? And we're just further ahead than we would have otherwise been. I think the same is true for engaging with each other online. This podcast, this recording, this Zoom meeting, I mean, this is a great example, right? We've got a virtual company. We've got people in Portland to New York and Texas to Minnesota, and we're on Zoom and Google Hangouts and all this kind of stuff. And it feels like we're sitting right next to each other. And it's really amazing that we're able to kind of run a kind of remote first company, and it's working really well.
Yeah, good. Well, speaking of that topic, I mean, obviously COVID, to your point, has had a pretty significant impact across all e-commerce. Talk a little bit about what that's done specifically to your business, and any pivots that you guys have done as a result of that.
Yeah. So, we were growing quickly before COVID. Obviously, COVID gives us a bump, right? We're selling cleaning products during a pandemic. I always tell my friends the only thing better than selling cleaning products during a pandemic is to sell them online. And that's all we do. So we were super fortunate to get a big bump from COVID, and it stuck around, because when people try Branch Basics, typically they love it and they stick with it. And so we've seen a big bump from COVID. I think when you talk about navigating COVID, in the early days, I'm sure you've got your own stories, but in the early days, we didn't really, we started feeling volume. We didn't really know where it was coming from. Mm-hmm. We didn't know if it was like all the great marketing stuff that we're doing or what was going on. We quickly realized kind of, we put it all together, but one of the things, we just have long lead times, and COVID exacerbated that, right, on caps and bottles and labels and all the other kind of things that we use. And so we actually got into a situation where we ran out of stock, or we were going to run out of stock, and we prioritized our subscribers. And it's something that kind of came naturally in the moment, but I've talked to a few different people in different interviews and podcasts like this, where it's really something that I think was the right call in hindsight. And I'm really thankful that we did. We did it mostly because it was the right thing to do. You've got these deeply invested consumers who are reliant on your product. Many of them can't use other cleaning products and other soaps and stuff because they get allergic reactions or their eczema or different things. But also from a logistical standpoint, right? Like we had automatic, our billing and subscription fulfillment processes. They didn't really care about the pandemic. They just kind of kept going in the background, and we would have gotten kind of all messed up. And so, long story short, we ended up prioritizing our subscribers and our existing customers by taking our kits down. So we would basically sacrifice new customers for a long time while we sold the razor blade, right? The concentrate refills on subscription. And man, it saved us, in terms of just a logistical nightmare. But it also, I think, we got a lot of nice notes from customers, and I think it was the right thing from a consumer perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you highlight something there that's really an opportunity for subscription businesses, which is that idea of kind of blending of the two worlds of subscription and loyalty together. You took and decided that those were priority customers. Number one, they were predictable. They already were customers. You were going to bill them their next period, and of course needed to fulfill on that promise. But also it creates that club mentality, right? That I'm a premium customer to them, and therefore I am going to be put up towards the front of the line, and that's got to do a lot for helping churn down the road, right? They now love your brand. They love the way your brand has treated them, especially through a difficult time, and they're going to honor that by being a more loyal subscriber.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And to the point that we were talking about earlier, I just think when you focus on the consumer experience and you make it right for them, no matter what it is, whether it's, hey, my package blew up and we send them free stuff, even though it's FedEx's fault, and whatever it is, you make it right for them, they will be loyal, in return. We've seen that over and over again. So this is one small example of that.
Absolutely. So when you do find yourself in a situation where, consumers want to cancel or don't want to or can't, in a lot of situations, keep the product anymore, what strategies do you guys have in place to try and keep those hard-earned customers?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the content is a big piece of it, right? Where we try and add value beyond just the subscription and just the product, right? So like we really think of ourselves as a community, and we hope to add value to their lives beyond just the product. And so, when you talk about, we work really hard to get a new customer, how do you keep them kind of thing, that content, we invest heavily in that and make sure that it's high quality, it's relevant, it speaks to them, all of that kind of thing. Certainly when we have people that, and we've had this a lot lately, come across hard times or financially can't do it, that kind of thing. Our customer service, we've built kind of an amazing customer service team around this content. We don't just answer questions. I mean, we're talking about food and meditation and all these different concepts in health and wellness. And as a result, we get questions back about all those things. So our customer service team looks very different than just, hey, FedEx blew up my package, or I want to cancel my subscription, or, some of those, obviously we get those things,
right?
But the team looks very different. And as a result, we will often find ourselves just doing the right thing by customers by saying, hey, obviously we can't be doing this forever, but we'd love to give you some free product, or, I'm so sorry that you lost your job, but here's one more free subscription. Hopefully you can find something in the meantime to make ends meet or whatever. So we will kind of at the end of the day, when it comes to people calling up and canceling, if all of the other stuff that we're not doing isn't enough, we will kind of try and do the right thing when we can.
But remember that.
Yeah. And like you said, exactly.
Yeah. So that sounds like a rather specialized customer service agent, not one likely to be offshored for that reason, but also creating some cost and complexity at the same time. How are you balancing that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we really view it as a competitive advantage. So we're anxious. I mean, we don't view customer service as a cost center, right? Like we view it as a profit center. This is like, how do we make this company? How do we create raving fans? And so we overhire in this area. We overinvest. And we're excited to do that because we're talking about all these different concepts in health and wellness, and some are a lot more complicated than others and very nuanced and that kind of thing. And so we'll get questions like, hey, I saw your social media post on healthy mattresses. What do you think of this chemical in this mattress? You know what I mean? Like it's so nuanced, it's so detailed.
Yeah.
And obviously we there's only so far we can go. But we spend an inordinate amount of time researching. It is very common for one of our customer service agents or our founders to be on the phone with other manufacturers, determining what ingredients are in their mattress or
Really?
in their beeswax candle or you name it, right? Like it's amazing and something we're super proud of. And yeah, hopefully over time it becomes a real true differentiator. We get almost every time we get a great testimonial from a customer, it mentions both the product and the content that we produce.
Wow.
So we know we're doing the right thing. We know we're on the right track. We just want to keep doing more of it.
Yeah. Well, you talked there about viewing it as a profit center and not a cost center, that it's a value add core, part of the product itself by being able to talk to somebody and ask questions and that sort of thing. But, so many businesses want to look at those types of things like underlying technology as just that. They're just like almost necessary evils, right? It's just money you have to spend. You have to have somebody there to answer the phone, and you have to have a technology platform and a website and all those kind of things. But that really requires a lot of alignment between, founders and investors, and of course yourself, to make all that happen. So how are you keeping everybody wanting to flow in that direction? Has it been pretty organic, or, how do you bring consensus?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It has been fairly organic. I think one of the things that helps is, the company's growing really quickly and everybody's excited about it. And so they feel good about the direction that we're going. But we're very clear to message it too, like not just to folks like you when we're doing, podcast interviews. Our founders are doing a lot of this kind of thing. But even to our team and to our investor base, right? Like this idea of an education company first, product company second. I mean, we have these little taglines that really help kind of align everybody and make sure that we're all moving in the right direction, in the same direction. But I think because the company has been successful, I think people are on board. And fortunately for me, we don't have a lot of investors in our shorts, every day. We haven't raised institutional money yet. So, that's been nice too. We've been able to finance the growth of the company with friends and family. And so I think that helps, it feels fairly organic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunate stars have aligned a little bit. To your point, you're a cleaning company, an online cleaning company in a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty good place to be.
Totally.
So as you guys have grown, company obviously been around for over 8 or 9 years now. How have you guys made decisions about suppliers and partners, whether even that when it comes down to technology partners or, fulfillment, that sort of thing? How do you evaluate them and ensure that the decisions you're making today don't just fit the need now, but fit the need in the future as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think for most of our partners, we focus on fit. I think it's that kind of magic that you can't really describe, but it when you have it kind of thing. Like I think about our 3PL. There's lots of 3PLs out there. We use one that's a little bit smaller, but that is kind of more family run. We call up the CEO, the owner, on a monthly basis. We're checking in. We're talking with his team every week. This is something where if there's a VIP package that goes out, we call them up and say, hey, grab this one, make sure it's perfect. You're not doing that with the massive 3PL that is all tech driven and, all the fancy direct to consumer companies are using. Right. So that's a good example of like, even we have a manufacturer that's a little bit like that, right? Like we're starting to outgrow him a little bit, but he's grown with us. He's super good to work with. He's flexible. I just think when you're a startup, that flexibility, that kind of like ability to just call up and pivot or tweak or change, that's just so important, right? And so we, for partners, we've really focused on fit, right? As it relates to technology platforms and that kind of thing, we started out on WooCommerce. And I don't have an e-commerce background, neither did Greg. And so our thought was like, hey, we don't know if there's a business here. This thing was shut down for a year and a half, right? We're not going to pour a bunch of money into a website when there's not a business. And so we worked with what we had for a long time. And then we said, okay, we're ready now. We've got a business. This is 3 years in. after 3 years of kind of dealing with subpar technology, we decided to upgrade, and we did some research, talked to friends, and our mindset with technology is always kind of go with best in class, because for all the same reasons that you're talking about. Like, it is not just an afterthought. It is not just a necessary evil. Like, this can be a driver of the business. And so a good example of that is our subscription. Our subscription software and our capabilities with subscriptions. In the old website with WooCommerce, we didn't have many capabilities. And the thing was like a Jenga tower. And like anytime you messed with it, it was like it was going to fall down, you know?
Right.
And so now we've got this new technology. We have the ability for customers to manage the subscription, to cancel anytime, it's so much better, right? And they can do it mobile, or they can do it desktop. It's a million times better, right? And it's just probably standard for the industry today. But from a technology perspective, we've really tried to go best in class, and we've been well served by that. I mean, we pay a bit extra, I'm sure, but it's really served us well.
Yeah, it's good to hear you say that. Number one, great to hear that you value fit and, the right partner for your business, that human part of it, that, hey, is there somebody I can actually call and not a service desk that I'm going to, ring and hope I get a response. And, from a technology perspective, I've heard this message a couple of times too, when you're starting up, when you're running it out of your garage, right? You're focused on your product. You're trying to find as many plug and play components as you can, right? Whether that's the website, the payments, the fulfillment, whatever the case might be. So you value, that in the early going, because it doesn't take as much of an investment. You can get up and running faster. And then over time, you start to outgrow some of those things, and, you want to go to the next point. And of course, your ability to invest along the way, there's going to be a huge factor, right? Going with bespoke technology can be incredibly expensive and time consuming for that matter. And for a lot of people, that takes away from your focus on the core product, right? The thing that your customers actually care about. So it takes, I think what you're saying there is it takes that balance, right? Knowing when is the right time to make that investment, but realizing that it probably is going to mean an investment at some point in the life cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm skeptical too, I think, at this stage. The stage we're at, which is like, hey, we've got a meaningful business, but we're by no means some big company, right? So at this stage, I'm really skeptical of customization. I just think so many entrepreneurs and peer companies waste so much time with customized solutions that break down, or that don't scale the way they thought, or can't be tweaked, or don't work with this new review plugin that they want to use, or whatever it is. Like, I just feel like, you go with the best in class kind of plugins like you're talking about. And if you can't do it with that, there's a question in my mind as to whether you should even be doing it, right? Or whether you can be spending your time, energy, and resources on something else, like a great customer experience, or a great product, or a great whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I just feel like that it can be a rabbit hole. Customization can be especially as it relates to technology, can be a rabbit hole that you can just lose sight of the priorities of a business at this stage, right? Like you said, longer term, it might make more sense, but early on, I would caution anybody to kind of think, oh, I need a custom website, or I need a custom this or a custom that.
Yeah. Well, I grew up the way you did, which was starting at a much larger organization before moving out of it. And, we had I was responsible for technology and operations. And we just had a lot of systems that had customized components in them. And when we started to go upgrade, to the next version of it, they were like, oh, but you're going to have to spend all of this money to move this customization up into the next version. And you're like, what was that doing for us in the first place? For what this cost, do we really get that much value out of it? So I like your line of thinking there for sure.
Well, it's served us well. Now, I will say we have seen the difference too between kind of cheap plugins and industry leading plugins too, right? So like, I fully endorse kind of like industry leading, best in class. They operate together. They oftentimes, like, we'll talk to a new review software provider or plugin, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we've got an integration with this, and that. And it's like, we already use all those things, right? So they almost kind of tend to play nice together, where all of them kind of know, like we use Zendesk, right? Like they tend to be industry leading, or I think they are at least. And like, they've got integrations with all these different things. And so it just makes it so much easier. And that ecosystem has been really good for us. So.
Yeah. Well, it's nice when it's a component that somebody else can pay for and, kind of blaze the trail on, and then you can just take advantage of it at a much lower cost, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So anything else from a lessons learned perspective that as you've been scaling this business up, you're like, man, if I could just go back to myself a couple of years ago and shake him, I'd say this.
Good question. Yeah. I think, and these are probably more generalized entrepreneurship lessons, but this idea of a silver bullet is so alluring, right? Like, oh, it's going to be Facebook. Like we can drive all of our growth through Facebook, or oh, affiliate marketing. Like if we only had affiliate marketing, like we would be 10 times the size that we are today. Or, I thought I was smart enough to kind of avoid those traps, but I found myself kind of falling into them every once in a while. One of the things that we have seen is just that all of the, when you talk about growing a business, all of those touch points, all of those levers, all of those pieces of the funnel, they all work together. And you can't have just one of them. And it's not just one of them that's driving everything, right? So it's the orchestra that you create when you've got Facebook operating properly, and paid search operating properly, and PR and affiliate and influencer marketing, and all these things that we all are working hard to do. It's that orchestra that's really powerful. It's frustrating at times when you can't tease it out and you don't know, like, is Facebook paid search and my email marketing like all taking credit for the same sale? The short answer is probably yes.
Right.
But I guarantee if you took them all down, you wouldn't be happy either. You know what I mean? And so I think it's one of those where, I think the big lesson learned is just there's no silver bullet, and it's about the hard work of rolling up your sleeves and making sure that you're building a sound funnel and just being patient, If
it was that easy, everybody'd be doing it, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think the other lesson learned is one that I'm still learning, to be honest with you. And I see it all the time when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, is the hardest part is just getting started. Like, everybody wants to, sit behind their computer, develop a business plan, talk to their friends about the business. But what's really hard is rolling up your sleeves and getting out there and selling your first bottle of soap, right? And it's hard because it's vulnerable, right? It means like, hey, are you going to buy this soap, or do you think it's crazy, or do you not like this product, or whatever it is, right? And so when I talk to entrepreneurs that are just starting out and just getting going, the more that you can kind of do manually, the more that you can kind of roll up your sleeves and just get to doing, and not as much planning, right? I think that's kind of a lesson that we're always trying to instill in our team and our projects. This podcast that we're working on is a great example. Like, everybody wants a perfect podcast before they've actually done one podcast, right? And so that's a big lesson. I think the third one would be, just this idea that you got to have patience, right? Like, I thought we could grow this business much faster than we are. I'm super happy with how fast we're growing. But did I think it could happen faster? Yes. But it's always twice as expensive and twice as hard as you think, And so anyway, I think those are kind of some of the lessons. I think I'm still learning a lot of them, to be honest with you.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And just hearing you say those lessons makes me feel better, which is nice going into a weekend that I can feel like, okay, I'm not the only one with these struggles. We're all going through it.
And that's been another thing. It's not so much a lesson learned, but it's been a huge support, is just talking with other entrepreneurs that are doing similar things. So ones that are slightly ahead of you, right, that can kind of lead you and help you in that way. Right. But then also the peer companies, right? So like if you're just starting out, like who are the other folks that are just starting out that are facing the same issues and problems? And that's you just don't want to feel alone. That's hard.
You've brought us to the heart of why we're doing this podcast, which is there's plenty that have gone down this road before. You can hear and learn from the lessons they've gone through, and if nothing else, just commiserate with other people who have gone through the same thing. There's a lot of comfort in that, and there's actually a lot of validation in that too. That hey, if this is something you're struggling with, you're probably doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for this conversation. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I believe our listeners have as well. Where can they go to find out more about the company and get in contact with you if they have any questions?
Yeah, well, certainly they can check out branchbasics.com, of course, but feel free to email me at tim@branchbasics.com too. So happy to connect with anybody, and LinkedIn, I guess, would be another way. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to sign up myself. There's absolutely, my wife and I are big on trying to find things that are as safe as possible. And, there's a lot of harsh stuff out there, and we have 2 young kids. And so I'll definitely be checking it out myself.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Tim.